Welcome to the Chronicle Reports. I'm your host, Chronicle. Today, we read diving deep into a major fracture in American politics. The head-on collision between civic nationalism and nativist traditionalism. The focus? A high-stakes exchange between former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy and online firebrand Nick Fuentes. This isn't just a political disagreement. It's a battle over the very definition of American identity. Let's analyze the facts. To understand this friction, we have to look at the biographical data. According to reported sources, Vivek Ramaswamy is a first-generation American. But the details of his family history have become a point of contention for his critics. These sources state that Ramaswamy's father is not a U.S. citizen. Furthermore, his mother reportedly did not complete her naturalization process and take the citizenship test until after Vivek was born. This means Ramaswamy gained his status through birthright citizenship. Critics have used this factual sequence to label him an anchor baby, arguing that his legal status lacks what they call moral legitimacy compared to families who have been in the country for centuries. Now, let's analyze Mr. Ramaswamy's defense. He champions a philosophy known as civic nationalism. His argument is built on a simple framework. You are either an American or you are not. He believes that America is not defined by bloodline, but by an ideological creed. Ramaswamy argues that the concept of a heritage American, the idea that your ancestry determines your status, is as loony as anything the woke left has produced. To him, any individual who accepts the traditions, culture, and founding principles is just as much of a forefather as those who arrived on the Mayflower. His goal is to revive a vision of citizenship where legal status is the final word on belonging. Enter the counter-argument from Nick Fuentes and his supporters, who have countered with what they describe as absolute nukes of rhetoric. Their position is rooted in nativism, a political stance that prioritizes the interests of established inhabitants over immigrants. Fuentes argues that America is not a guest house or a social contract, but a home with a specific cultural and ethnic DNA. He puts forward a checklist for what he considers true American identity. First, religion, specifically Christian or Catholic. Second, linguistics. English must be the primary foundational language, not a second one. Third, ancestry. Lineage should ideally trace back to the American Revolution or the Civil War. And finally, customs. Observing holidays like Christmas and Easter, and engaging in traditional pastimes like baseball. Behind this argument is the historical concept of tenure. Fuentes argues that the older your family is in the country, the more American you are, because your ancestors suffered to build its foundation. Let's explore the specific language used to delegitimize Ramaswamy. Critics describe him as a social striver and a scammer. Why these specific words? Fuentes compares Ramaswamy to European titans like Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, and Thomas Edison. He argues that while Europeans are geniuses who invented things, Ramaswamy merely moved money around for billionaires and sold a fake drug. This is an attempt to frame Ramaswamy's success as hollow or parasitic, compared to the creative genius they associate with European heritage. Furthermore, they point to his personal life marrying an Indian woman and giving his children Indian names as evidence of a failure to assimilate. They contrast this with early 20th century immigrants who, in their view, kissed the ground, lost their accents, and viewed George Washington as their own founding father. Journalism requires us to look at the numbers. The sources highlight a stark demographic fact. 90% of the voters for the GOP are white. Fuentes' argument is that by promoting leaders like Ramaswamy, the Republican Party is effectively cutting off its own head. He suggests the party is telling white voters they are not entitled to their own country or their own birthright. This sets the stage for a major political confrontation. Fuentes has already forecasted a showdown in Ohio in 2026, stating he intends to send a message that the GOP mansion belongs to heritage Americans. In conclusion, the story of Vivek Ramaswamy and the online right is a factual case study in the tension between lineage and legislation. One side argues that the American dream is an open field where anyone who signs the contract and follows the rules is an equal. The other side argues that the American nation is a family tree and that you cannot join a family simply by reading its history books or wearing its clothes. Is America a creed or a club? This ideological fracture will likely define the 2026 election cycle and beyond. I am Chronicle, and this has been a special report for the Chronicle Reports. We present the facts. The analysis is yours. If you found this educational and informative, ensure you subscribe and engage in the discourse below, professionally and factually. Until next time, stay informed.